For anybody who's unfamiliar, Runnin Ref is an app-based strength and conditioning program that's been designed specifically for you, the officials. So we're 2 years into this. There's a lot of officials who still don't know who Runnin Ref is and aren't familiar with the brand. So if you enjoy this webinar, we ask you to tell other officials about us and share the recording with your associations as it come out. This truly is about you investing in yourself as an official and getting better at your craft. That's what we're all here for. The physical side of officiating is important, just as every other part of it is. And, we want to help everyone here reduce more injuries, get in great shape, and look the part. So, without any further ado, let's get into this, because I don't think enough people know that we're actually talking about conditioning and not specifically just fitness as a global parameter. So quick agenda here. We're going to go through this. Fitness for officials is going to take us about 30 minutes, and we want to leave a lot of time for closing remarks, any Q&A, any questions that you have. Again, I'll be on here as long as we need to and as long as we're allowed to be, and answer every question that we can. So a couple topics we're going to talk about, okay? Basically, why fitness is so important. What happens if you're not fit enough? What goes into fitness actually, okay? We'll break down some myths. We'll pull up some data. We'll go back and forth between long, slow cardio and high-intensity interval training. We'll talk about how you can do this specifically as an official in season and during your off-season training, okay? So quick little story, because this is not about me. This is about you guys. I was a college strength and conditioning coach for 9 years, and I specialized in return to play, team conditioning sessions, and on-field movement. I just got sick of moving around from, state to state and college to college, and eventually I moved to Dallas, Texas, and I started a different business than Runnin Ref. But this came very organically. I got a call from 2 college football officials about a little over 3 years ago now. And, they reached out after their supervisor just said, hey, my career changed whenever I hired a track coach. Said I lessened my injuries, and I got in really good shape for football. And that's what we did. And some of these guys had some injuries. They wanted to get in great shape. They needed to learn how to run more mechanically sound. So here we are, 3.5 years almost after this first initial training session. And these are pictures from that here in North Texas. And, now we're able to share this story with you guys, and we're able to help more officials all over the world. So that's really what fires us up and allows us to do some of these things. The first question, and we're going to open up this one. Brad, why don't we just start with you on this first one if you want to add in. But what are the benefits of improved fitness? And everybody, y'all go ahead and chime in at the same time and, drop some of your thoughts down into the chat as well.
I will tell you on this program, guys, that I started it about 2.5 years. Well, September of 23, I believe, 24, September 24, or 23 rather. So it has fitness-wise, and I know somebody asked about if this is a one-size-fits-all. I think Edward Hernandez asked. I will answer that question where, yes, it is. So I do basketball and football. And I will tell you this program that Austin has is a great program to follow along. It has helped me in both my football and basketball. So the fitness part of it is outstanding. I'm not tired when I get through, which is surprising. But, if you follow Austin's workouts, especially with the HIIT part of it, it's a great program. And the fitness is awesome. It helps me out. And it's also helped me out in my professional career as well.
Mark, you want to tell us anything about what you think about, improving your fitness just for, officiating specifically?
Yeah, getting involved with this app made a huge difference. I started, I think it was January 1st of 24, maybe 23. But that was a huge thing to do. It's so easy to do. All you do is literally follow the app, find a place to work out. Luckily, I can work out at home and go and do it every day. And it's not just weights. The sprint work for me especially has been helpful because that ties in with what I do officiating-wise. And it's just been a huge help. Avoiding injuries and just generally being able to move. I definitely feel a difference on the field compared to before.
So let's start here. Why is fitness important? Some of you have dropped some awesome things down in the chat, But the first one is career longevity. We want you to be able to have a sustainable career for as long as you want to be a sports official. Fitness is also important for quicker recovery times. So the better in shape you are, or the fitter you are, the quicker you're going to recover. And I think somebody just put that down in the chat. So kudos to you. You were a step ahead of everybody. Fitness is important for preventing injuries. So I think everybody knows that. The fitter I am, the less my risk for injury is. The less fit I am, the worse physical condition that I'm going into my games and trying to use the early gains to get in shape, the higher my risk for injury truly is once I go out into the course of the season, okay? So what happens if you're not fit? Again, injuries can occur, okay? We want to stay away from those as much as we can. So we're kind of repeating that theme here. What else happens? You're not in position to make the right calls. Haley, you just made a comment on that, and that is wonderful. I think you probably saw the slideshow or something. What happens if you're not fit? It's visible to everyone watching. So you don't want to be put on notice for not being in good physical condition, because we already know that everybody is already looking at the officials. You're getting graded on every single game that you officiate. And there's a residual effect to this too. So it's not just I'm in shape for game 1 or game 2 or week 1 and week 2, but the residual effect of not being in great physical condition really creeps up on you, week 7, week 8, week 9. Fatigue sets in, muscles start getting overworked, and then other problems start to happen too. Your heart rate is just at a sky high level at all times, and you're not able to, get back down to baseline. But when we start talking about fitness, the question is what goes into it, right? Because there's a lot of different myths and there's a lot of different thoughts and theories and processes. But what truly goes into officiating? Fitness. And if you watch the game, it gives you a lot of the answers. But fitness, a lot of people think and put into this bucket term of just running in a straight line. But once you watch what you do in game, let alone any GPS data, you're going to see in every one of you sprint, you stop, you start, you change directions, let alone you never get a break during the game. So that's even more a reason that your fitness level has to be so high, because of all these other movements. They impact your fitness when you stop and you start and you reaccelerate and change directions when the play goes another direction. So watch the game and it gives you all the clues that you need. I know there's walking. I know that there's jogging that go into fitness as well. And we're not negating all of that. But this type of stuff is very easy to prepare for. It's all of the sprinting, the bursting, the changing directions that you have to be prepared for. And again, as someone mentioned, keeping up with the play. Anybody want to put into the chat, what are some fitness hot topics that you're curious about? And maybe we get to some of them. Maybe this leads us back into the Q&A portion here. But what are some myths that people want us to uncover, or that people are thinking about and people are curious about here?
Yeah, not sure if I could, if it's myth related, but yeah, getting a lot of good topics here to dig into: recovery during the season, warm-ups in confined spaces. You already talked a bit about injury prevention, recovery time, the role of sleep, right? I think that's another area as well that I've heard you talk a lot about. So already some good topics in there, and seeing a few more here now too. Lunge strength, nutrition.
Hydration.
This is an interesting one. Maybe this is a myth, whether it's true or not, right? Julian said not to lift legs during season, right?
I'm going to tell you, Julian, before we get to the Q&A part, that is definitely a myth. Okay, so I think we're on the same page. I think that's what he was alluding to, that is a myth, not to lift legs during the season. You've got to stay strong. You don't want to lose your stability and your strength. But let's get back into the topic about fitness. Let's break a couple fitness myths down and some things that we commonly hear out in the world today. So first, more. A lot of people think that they always need to do more work. I'm not tired yet, or that's not always what you need, though. Sometimes you need something that's better, or you may just need something that's more specific to the event that you're going after. Let me check my steps for the day. Drop something in the chat if you've looked at your Apple Watch today and saw how many steps that you've taken. I don't think that is a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination. But again, how many steps you get into a day is not specifically getting you geared up for your upcoming football officiating season or your upcoming basketball camps that you've got coming. What's my max heart rate? This is a big one that I think a lot of people are misguided on. So oftentimes we think a max heart rate needs to be lowered, when in effect, when you work hard enough, everybody's heart rate's going to skyrocket, okay? Now, everybody's may skyrocket at a different level, but what you're really chasing is heart rate recoverability. You want to be able to drop that heart rate back down as quick as you can and recover. Because if I take off and I sprint 30 feet or 30 yards, I know that my heart rate's going to spike. We can see that on GPS units. You can feel it when your chest is beating, but you want to be able to pull that heart rate back down very quickly. And another big one is I'm taking too much rest time. So that could be in between sets, that could be in between sessions, that could also be in between reps. And I think that a stopwatch can really be your best friend when you go into training. So we have them on our phones. A stopwatch is really cheap at Sports Authority or Dick's Sporting Goods or on Amazon. But oftentimes we either get bored in between reps, but remember, boredom is not what we're chasing. The other thing that you chase when you're looking for too much rest time is I don't feel like I'm working hard enough. But the point of rest is so that you can quickly recover and then have a high output again on your next rep. And that's what we're chasing. And we'll get into that a little further when we get into high intensity interval training shortly. But here's some really, really cool eye-opening statistics from a couple different sports, okay? So first we're going to start with some soccer GPS data that we gathered over 2024, okay? There's a association that we have a partnership with, and they have GPS units. We've collected all the data from 2024, so this is where this is coming from. So you can look anywhere on Google, and it'll tell you between 5 to 7 miles is what a soccer official will accumulate over the course of a game or a match, right? But that's only part of the story. It doesn't tell you how much of that is walking. So, you know, an official wants to say, oh, I need to get ready for the game, and they go out and they run 3 miles and 5 miles. Well, you're actually doing too much, and you don't need all that. Again, it's unspecific to what you're doing. So take that into account, that 5 to 7 miles only tells you a little bit, okay? The next thing is high intensity distance. I think this is the biggest thing that you've got to get into your mind today about training going forward and what you actually do in game, okay? So this was an average 878 yards of high intensity distance per game. So that's anything over 12.3 miles per hour. Now, let you in on a little secret. Jogging is from 4 to 6 miles per hour, okay? So once you start to think about that, wow, I'm really doing a lot of sprinting. And then you start to do the math, and, you know, we have some officials that have Ref 6 watch data, and over 50% of their games is walking distance. So once you start doing the math, you start putting 2 and 2 together, and you're like, why am I going on these long 3, 5, 7 mile runs to get ready to officiate if I know the game is telling me I'm doing different things? And we wonder why we're fatigued in game and don't have the same level of fitness that we would like, or we wonder why we pull a calf muscle and we could have, you know, probably stayed away from that. The next thing is, again, average miles per hour, just another cool statistic, but I think we're not talking about speed development and speed training here, but the fastest athletes in the world, you know, run at about 23 miles per hour, right? So Tyreek Hill, John Morant, you know, Kylian Mbappe, you look at them, they're running at about 23 miles per hour. These officials were averaging this top speed. So this was an average of the top speeds that they would hit over the course of these games, averaged over the course of a year. Now, you may never hit 16 miles per hour in your game, or you may have a smaller window on a basketball court, but you have to keep in mind that at some point you will need to sprint throughout the course of a game. So you need to be in shape to do that. Here was some very cool basketball statistics. We got very limited data last year at Refmaster's basketball camp, by the way, just so everybody knows where this came from. Short games. These were also tournament-style games, so they weren't full games. But, you know, this official average between, we got 3 games worth of data, 1.81 miles. He's covering some distance in that game. He hit 16.1 miles per hour was an average top speed. And again, 520 yards of high-intensity distance. So, again, you watch a basketball game, it tells you all the answers. I sprint, I stop, I jog a little, I sprint again. The numbers just don't lie, and we have to listen to them to help you become a better official and get in the shape that you're supposed to get in to officiate at the highest level that you want to. So here's where we're going to start breaking down long, slow cardio. Now, I want to make a point. Aerobic training is much different than long, slow cardio, and we have a slide that I'm sure quite a few of you will want to take a picture of when we get to it. But long, slow cardio, here are the issues that we have with it. First off, it's very slow. We just talked about the speed of movement that was necessary in game, right? So A, we're already not preparing ourselves for that. That right there doesn't mimic anything that I see during a game, okay? The other thing is this oftentimes leads to a lot of overuse injuries. So if you're an official that's ever had an overuse injury before, this is something that could aid into that. The repetitive heel striking. Look every time during this jog that the heel strikes the ground. And we develop knee pain, we develop hip pain, we develop back pain. But that poor movement pattern, that poor running mechanical pattern over and over is leading into some of that. So there's other forms of cardio that people do too, okay? And it's not the implements that I want you to take note of, okay? The implements are fine in certain cases, but again, it's the long, slow, repetitive action. Just because I'm doing activity doesn't mean that I'm getting something done. This in no way, shape, or form looks like it's getting me ready for it, let alone the impacts and the steps that I may be taking during the game, the distances that I travel. My heart rate may be getting up for a long period of time, but I'm also not working very hard. So when we get to the slide about aerobic training is actually done very hard. So just because it's aerobic doesn't mean that it's easy. You still have to push yourself and challenge yourself to develop the capacity of your aerobic system to become more well-rounded. The hot topic was high-intensity interval training, okay? And there is tons and tons of research. You can Google at any time, and you will find tons of articles that are showcasing why high-intensity interval training is more advantageous for you as just a general population instead of long, slow cardio. And one of the big ones is shed body weight faster. And a lot of officials will ask, hey, I just want to lose weight. I want to just look better. Okay, high-intensity interval training could be something that could help you along the way. Other benefits, it's very time efficient. So once I warm up, I can get these done in a very quick manner. Each set doesn't have to take you more than 3 to 6 minutes because you're working really hard. You're getting a short break. You're working really hard. And if you are doing this in a running style, you're accumulating that distance that you're looking for anyways. The other thing we talked about earlier was improved heart rate recoverability. So that's the basis of high-intensity interval training. I'm going to work and put a high output out for a short burst of time, and then I've got to recover. And then I've got to be able to reproduce that same effort or as close to as I can over and over again. Well, what does that sound like? That sounds like officiating. I've got to sprint to keep up with the play. I get not a rest time because I'm mentally engaged in the play and what's going on, but then I've got to do it again for the next play. So my heart rate may drop a little bit, but then I've got to do it again. So the benefits of high-intensity interval training are almost endless. The next one is it mimics the flow of the game. Again, watch the game. It gives you the answers. And this is the big one, okay? Specific in-game work-to-rest ratios. So all that means is the time that I'm working and the time that I'm resting. With interval training, you get the ability to mimic what actually happens during the game. And football is the easy one because they're on a standard play clock. And I know basketball has a shot clock, but there's a lot of different elements to that and a lot of different creativity within the game itself. But when you look at a game like football, you know, the fastest teams in college and the NFL now, you know, will snap the football between 18 and 22 seconds. We can physically prepare you for that. Science has told us what to do, okay? So here's the big one. I think that a lot of you are going to want to take pictures of this slide. More than happy to share this with you. But I want to talk through it real quick before we kind of start to open the chat back up right here, okay? So your body has 3 different energy systems. And now I made a note at the top between reps because there's different charts that will show you between sets and between sessions, so on and so forth. So each energy system, the anaerobic, anaerobic lactic, and aerobic system are all always present. But you can see in the top left corner, the primary energy system that is doing all of the work is what you got to focus on, okay? And they only have a certain threshold for time in which they're available to work, okay? So not everything is done in the aerobic energy system primarily. So what you see on the left-hand side, the duration of work. So my anaerobic system is my power system. It's my system that gives me the explosive ability. I only have that for about 10 seconds. And you'll even find some research that'll show you 6 seconds. We're saying 10 seconds just to be on the safe side. So to train that, I've got to have adequate rest on the back end of that. So we go back to inadequate rest times in the myth section that we talked about earlier. If I'm going to work as hard as I can for 10 seconds, I need at least 30 seconds minimum rest so that I can resynthesize and recover a little bit and have another higher output. And then if you look to the rest of the chart, it's very easy to sequence off of that and see what needs to be trained and how to go about it, okay? And science tells us the answers. All we have to do is listen to it and apply it to officiating the best way that we can. So let's look at a little bit of high intensity interval training for officials. What does that look like? All right. So we use an exercise that's called repeat sprints, and this is just high intensity interval training. Now, you may say, hey, I don't have access to a field. I can't get into a basketball court. That's okay. Be creative. Use what you have available. So some of that may just be, I can get out on the sidewalk or the street that I live on, and I can mark some sections off. Some people even have backyards that are big enough that they can run in. There's parks that are nearby. You could get on a track. But the point is, you're applying interval training principles. You're actually having your foot on the ground like you would in a game and getting some of those impacts so that you're not as sore when game time comes. Some of the sessions that we do, you see in some of these, some of our football officials are starting in different positions. You can mimic the positions that you actually start from if you really want to. And again, we're looking for it to be as specific as possible, because once you start your in-season, we want you to be full force. We want you to be feeling good. We want you to be as prepared as humanly possible for your next match or your game, okay? But what if I don't have that, right? We just talked about I don't have access to a field, okay? A treadmill is another great option. Most people do have access to a gym or a treadmill. Some people even have those at home. It's just another option for you to get one step closer to your foot being on the court or on the field. It's locomotive. I'm actually running. I'm going through my gait cycle. I'm getting my body prepared to actually run, right? The closest thing to getting ready to run is actually running, right? That's the most specific preparation that we could possibly do. And then as we talk about other alternative options for you, some low impact methods. And these are wonderful too. I have no issues with these whatsoever. You know, sometimes it could be you're fighting through an injury, and maybe that we need to stay away from that injury, but we still need to get some cardio in, okay? Now we're training around injuries and still getting some energy system development, some cardio in to supplement, or it's in season and my body's beat up, right? I can do these things to continue training in season all year long. I can always stay physically fit and healthy as an official. But a lot of people are just, not sure where to start. The biggest thing is have a plan. So a guideline for you would be know when your next event is. So we have a lot of basketball officials that are coming up on spring clinics and camps. We have football officials that are already going through that. Soccer officials are in season. When you know your next date, the next game or clinic that I have, you can work backwards from that. So if I have 4 weeks to prepare for my next event, I know what kind of condition I'm in. I know where I'm at starting. I know what I've been doing up to this point. Now I start at the end date and I can fill in the gaps backwards. And that's how we build programs, is we look at the end date and we build them all the way back through the course of the year, so that we are gradually ramping up our officials to get prepared for the end season. So that's the next thing that I hope that you take away from this, is wherever you start at, gradually ramp yourself up. You don't have to get it all in one day. You don't have to try to get in tip-top shape in 2 weeks, because that's where injuries occur with the spike of volume. So that's another reason why training should be year-round for you, is that you want to gradually increase how fast you're running, how many changes in direction that you're starting to do. And that's really going to help all of our officials just continue to stay healthy, throughout their careers, and the career longevity that we talked about earlier at the very beginning of this. A couple guidelines for off-season training. As most of us are in an off-season format, even though you may have, like we mentioned, some events that are going on right now, okay? Spread the volume out over the week. So again, we'll take the 5 to 7 miles in that soccer match, for example. If I know that I'm going to cover between 5 and 7 miles, and 5 miles is going to be my target volume for a week, I don't need to get it all in one day. What I want to do is I want to split the sessions out, because I do know volume of movement is important, and I do know that speed of movement is important, right? We've talked about both of those concepts already. Now, in one session, I want to do some of the repeat sprint work, or I want to do some more high-intensity training. I think that the best time to do that is the beginning of the week, when your muscles are the freshest, okay? I can do the volume work anytime, so I can get a lot more distance covered later on in the week in a second, or possibly even a third session, depending on what your training week looks like. Okay, so here's how that's explained. And I think this wave-like pattern is really, really important to understand. So the blue line is volume, and you can think of volume as total distance or how much I'm covering. This could even apply to strength training as well. Intensity is how fast or how hard I'm going. Now, this is why once we tie all these last couple slides together, it's important for you to understand that if it doesn't happen in a wave-like pattern, if volume and intensity both just increase at the same time, you're going to get overtrained, you're going to get burnout, and this is where injuries occur. So gradually ramping up the volume and switching the distance with the intensity of movement, those are really going to be some of the things that are really going to guide you and push you on further and further in your training and get into the best shape of your officiating career. We asked this next question, and we want to bring our two guys back on for this next question. And everybody, please drop this down in the chat what you think. And I think some of you already asked questions about in-season training, but how important is it to continue to train in season? I think, Brad, we started with you last time. So Mark, do you want to lead this one off? How important is it for you to continue training in your season as well as in the off-season time period?
It may be more important, actually, because doing the job in season, I've got enough I have to think about and worry about during a game that I don't want fitness to be one of them. I'm going to just understand that's a given from continuing to work on in season. So I think it may be the most important one.
Yeah. Brad, what do you think about your in-season training and how it helps?
No, I agree with Mark on that, because the way the program's set up, especially after game night, I do my workouts in the morning. It helps me stretch out my legs from the night before and get to recovery. Even though, you're still working out, you're still getting a little recovery. And following the program, it really helps me out a lot.
Seeing a lot of great messages here, Sony, on the side, that it seems like a lot of our officials that are in this chat tonight do think that it's important. So I'm glad that we didn't put that up as one of the myths early on, because it seems like everybody's doing, and that's good. I'm happy that everybody is paying attention to what they're doing in season.
Yeah, absolutely. I did want to come back to something real quick. We had a question earlier in the chat. Malachi Moore, MLB umpire, leads the Refmasters baseball program along with Brennan Miller, who I think is a pretty dedicated member of the Runnin Ref program. He asked about whether you recommend recovery centers.
Malachi, I hope you're still on here, and if you can respond quickly, what kind of recovery centers are you talking about? There are a lot of things out there, right? I mean, there's, at least in Dallas, there's a thing called Stretch Lab, where I guess people can go and get stressed out. There's different, we're getting so niche-based in Dallas being a big market that there's even places that are specifically saunas. There's places that are specifically like cold and hot plunge places. So if we're just talking about those as a global, I think absolutely those type of stuff could be really beneficial for you. I mean, great topic for another day, but while we're on it, Malachi, yeah. I think that, yes, absolutely, as Brad mentioned, just getting your body moving the next day following a game, absolutely pivotal to your recovery. You get your body moving, you start blood flow, you start the recovery process right away. And I'm a fan of cold plunges. I'll be honest with you. I've read some research on them and they're great, but you're not going to catch me in that cold water very often. That's miserable. But if I was officiating, I might think of it differently, right? I'm training in different ways, but if I had to do as many games as y'all do in the season, I might consider.
I love that. And it kind of touches on something Erica White had mentioned in the chat about hot versus cold therapy and when we should incorporate them. Probably can't, I know the focus of today's session is on other things, but that is such a great topic. If we have time later, maybe we can touch on it. If not, we should definitely do a future session on recovery.
Yeah, that's a good one. And Erica, if you're still with us by the time, we finish, we're getting close to the Q&A portion. We'd love, to answer that question and chat and, have some back and forth dialogue on that. A couple quick things as we're wrapping up and going to get to this Q&A session here. Keys to better in-season training, because we've talked a lot about ramping up in the off-season, taking care of your body and getting yourself ready to perform once it's time to perform. But now in-season training, high volume is going to be your enemy, okay? That is one of the biggest things that we see with officials when they reach out and ask questions, is that they try to do too much in season. The other thing is you want to plan your toughest session as far away from game day as possible. So A, that's why it's important to have a plan, but B, that's why it's important for you to understand how stressful some of these different sessions are that you're doing, right? If I'm doing a lot of VO2 max runs and stuff in season, they've got to be far away from the session, or that volume is just going to creep up and I'm going to be, fatigued when it comes time for game day. And the game serves as conditioning. I think if you can take one thing away from this in-season portion, is that it's the most specific thing you do. It's your biggest form of conditioning. I think everyone knows you go into the season in shape nowadays, right? The days of I use game 1, game 2 to get myself into shape are far gone, and I hope they are for you. If you understand how challenging game 1 is and how sore you are at times after game 1, my ankles are sore, my back's a little tight, my hamstrings, I'm just feeling it everywhere. The game is the most specific thing you do, and it's the hardest thing to prepare for, not only because of the physical requirements, but because of the stressful things that go on mentally and all of the adrenaline that goes on and the hormonal things that come into that as well, okay? But if you aren't getting yourself in shape, we just, we want to know what's stopping you right now from getting yourself in shape. And if any of these apply to you, please put them down in the chat. We're a family here. We want to talk. We want this to be very open-ended. We want to help you with these. And there's probably other members that may be feeling some of the same things, or could even share a story and tell you how, they came pulled through. But consistency in your training, in your daily work, something that is stopping you from getting into better shape to officiate your next season? Is it just motivation? Oftentimes, we find that it's the motivational piece that officials struggle with the most when getting themselves up. Do I hit my snooze button? I know you have busy lives, you have families, you have full-time jobs, you're working a ton of games, but is it the continued motivation to stick with the craft and continue improving yourself day in and day out to become a high-level official? And is it just direction? Do you not know which way to go? I know that I need to be doing something, but I'm not sure what that is, and I'm not sure where to go. I'm not sure who to ask for help. So if any of these apply to you, please put them down in the chat. We want to help you. We want other officials to be able to comment and support you. And that's one of the biggest things we've learned since being a part of the Refmasters community, is that everything in here, and we're running this session with Refmasters, is that everything is about helping the officials and each other. And anytime that we are in a session together, everyone is always cheering each other on. And that's one thing that we love the most. So don't be shy. If you struggle with any of these, please write them down in the chat for us. So we want to give everyone a sneak peek of training and what it looks like from our side of things, okay? So we talked to you about Runnin Ref is an app-based strength and conditioning program. So we have specifically designed the best program in the world to prepare you for what you do as an official. We've included demo videos, text descriptions, options for you to train in a time-efficient manner so that you can go on with the rest of your busy life. We've made training as simple as we can because for us, it's all about results. So all you have to do is show up and follow the program. We have days that are laid out in season and off season. It changes from time to time to where the focus is on different things. And we give a lot of variety within our workouts and our training sessions, once again, to keep things fresh, but not to get too far away from the big rocks and the things that are most important for you as an official. And you see a lot of different variations, a lot of different options. The biggest thing that we found within our first year of helping officials was that officials needed options, right? And they were turned off if there wasn't enough options for them to do so. So every exercise that we have gives you plenty of options, whether you have a gym or whether you have a home setup. Questions?
Let's see here. Yeah, I know you just put that out to the group. I see a couple of folks typing some questions in. And this is an opportunity to ask questions based on any of the stuff that Austin has touched on, obviously, because, I mean, Austin, you touched on a lot there. That's a lot of information, right? So there's an opportunity to go into that, opportunity to ask questions about the Runnin Ref program, right? Or just any other fitness-related questions. And we might not be able to do all of it, right? Because you could definitely talk for hours on this. I know that for sure. You've got so much knowledge. But we'll do the best we can here. Seeing a couple of questions in here. First, let's just go reverse order. Erin, she asked, do you include mobility on your app? Austin?
Yes, we do. We, there are also options for that as well, because some of them are more challenging than others, but we absolutely do every day strength training and the fitness-based sessions as well. they have different ones. So you have two different options throughout the course of the week, and you have stuff that'll give you game day mobility as well. And then you can add those type of things into your own routine or implement, the things that we've provided.
And then John had a question about how frequently you would recommend HIIT workouts, HIIT workouts in a week.
Good question, John. I think 1 is ideal. 2, you can get away with. 3, you're kind of going a little bit overboard. But I will tell you, if you switch up the intervals, it'll be fine. Okay, so 2 is plenty. 3 is probably getting a little on the high end. But hey, I think there's a power in the placebo effect too. So if you think you need a 3rd or 4th session, I highly recommend that. I think that placebo has a lot to do with, what you think you're getting out of something.
Yeah. I got a question for our other panel guests here, while we also keep the chat box open for other people that have questions, because, I know the two of you, Brad and Mark, have been so engaged in the Runnin Ref program. For me, things like this, they make a lot of sense, but they can be a little intimidating, like just getting started, right? Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, what your experience was of that, how you kind of overcame that, and I think that could be really instructive for everyone here tonight.
Sure, I can start. I was training, but I was kind of haphazard and all over the place. And at about the same time, I started getting emails from Austin with this app he was running. And honestly, after seeing them 5 or 6 or 7 days, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to take a look at this. And I did it. And it was intimidating at first until I saw how easy it was. If you can operate a mobile phone, you can do this. And it's great. So the intimidation part was over pretty early, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, it's like Mark said, it's a little intimidating at first, but Austin does a great job on putting videos, as he was saying, on the workouts to show you how to do the exercises. Make sure you're doing them correctly, and you control your weight. I started off real slow on the weight side. When I was doing my bench press, it was 95 pounds, and I was like, golly, am I really getting anything out of this? Yeah, I was. And now I'm up to probably 40, 50 pounds more. But the thing is, it's intimidating. But like Mark said, once you start it, you get comfortable. You don't hit the snooze button. You get up in the mornings, you go to the gym, and it pays off in the long run.
Thanks for that. Makes a lot of sense. But your experience going through it is really helpful to hear from. Jason had a question. How would you mix in strength training with your HIIT regimen, taking into consideration proper rest for recovery?
Jason, thank you so much for joining us. Hope to see you very soon. We're going to keep this one short, okay? But I would either do a short HIIT regimen prior to strength training as opposed to after it if I'm doing it in the same session, or I would split them and do them on completely separate days. I think if you have the days available to train with a busy life, a busy schedule, I think the best opportunity for you would be to get a higher volume of each of those categories. So I would want a higher volume of strength training on one day, and I would want a higher volume of cardio or HIIT on a separate day, right? So I'm maximizing both of those. If I have to do them on the same day, they're just going to have to be shorter sessions, but I'm not going to get as much out of them. So those are the ways that I would do those together. And I think you could get away with, again, like our question earlier, how frequently John Connor asked, I think twice a week, if you did both of those, you could get away with that for sure. And there'd be plenty of time for rest. The nervous system needs longer to recover than muscles do. And bodybuilders have taken, this isn't a strength training topic, but bodybuilders have taken advantage of this forever, of doing multiple workouts within the course of a day. So the rest and recovery for your muscles isn't as long as necessary for the high intensity outputs as you would need for sprinting and stuff of that nature, high conditioning sessions.
Wow, that's so interesting. I never heard that before. So you said the nervous system requires more time for recovery than your muscles do.
Yeah, that's why when you do very high output type of stuff. So if I max out a squat, you've seen powerlifters. Powerlifters or Olympic weightlifters, they'll max out a session and they're fried for days. Like they're just messed up. It affects their sleep. It affects everything. Or officials understand this. How many officials don't sleep well after a game? Because their nervous system is so engaged, let alone the physical fatigue, but the nervous system is so engaged and ramped up that it's hard to go to sleep and it's hard to relax and get down to some of that. But
Wow.
we're getting off the conditioning topic here.
No, well, yeah, but these things kind of all related a little bit, but that's really good.
Yeah.
Bobby A, our friend up there in Ontario, he asked, "Can resistance bands give us the intensity as weight training in season, and do they provide less injury overall?"
I think to a certain extent, absolutely. So, it depends on the exercise, right? I mean, if I'm trying to do, body weight rows with a very, very light band, I'm probably not getting as much out of it as if I was doing a barbell or a dumbbell row, right? But if I can increase the intensity or the thickness of that band, absolutely. I think bands hold a great place, especially for some very specialized injury preventative exercises. And Bobby, we talked about this earlier today, actually, with the knee health, right? Was the bands can provide us some assistance for specific exercises to build up the knees. We do some different anterior tib exercises, which we call or the shin muscles, right? We build up those muscles to alleviate shin splints going forward. Bands can have some high impact. I wouldn't say that I would take strength training all the way out, but if all I had was bands, you can get something done better than nothing for sure.
And we had a question from Cody about whether the app touches on nutrition.
Cody, it does not. Thank you for asking. That's a great question. Nutrition is extremely important. I did not study nutrition and dietetics for 10 years. I can tell you that probably a ribeye is better for you than McDonald's fast food, but I'm not a registered dietitian, so I'm going to stay in my lane on this one. But it does not.
Let's do this though, just for fun, because you touched on nutrition. We've done this before. It's a little multiple choice quiz related to nutrition. You know where I'm going with this, Austin. I just pulled it up. We've done this in the past, but I think we've got some folks here, many of you or most of you, that maybe haven't seen this before. So let us know in the chat, out of these 4 options, which one is most ideal for a pregame meal in order to drive or to support high performance? Let us know in the chat. Pregame meal: A, a bacon cheeseburger; B, Greek yogurt and berries; C, chicken and rice; or D, chicken Caesar salad. Let us know in the chat which of those options. Austin, what were you saying?
I'm laughing. This is
Yeah.
This one.
Go ahead.
We've gone through this one before quite a few times.
So what we're seeing, Christopher Loving says B, Ross C, Daryl C, some B's. Quanice Spearman has B. We got a lot of B's. Tatonka has D. So does Justin. Wow, interesting spread here, huh? That's a good question, I guess.
Doubt. We haven't got a single A, Sony.
And that's maybe the reason why I'm not a referee or an umpire, because A would be my answer. But their own. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There we go, Mark. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. We'll go out. We'll have a meal. We'll do our pregame at Chili's. They've got a good bacon cheeseburger there. All right. So Austin, I think we've got a number of submissions here. Why don't you reveal from your expertise the answer?
Okay. The C is the best one. So bacon cheeseburger for obvious reasons. The Greek yogurt and berries is a great option. I don't think that it's probably substantial quite enough. And kind of the same thing with the chicken Caesar salad. Both of those aren't terrible options, and you got to know your body. You've got to know yourself. And if you deal with a dietitian or have any underlying conditions, then obviously, ignore this advice. But when we're specifically talking about B and D, I don't think there's a high enough carb source there to give you the fuel that you need throughout game. And we're getting protein in each one. Once again, probably more protein in C still. The chicken Caesar salad looks like, if that's at Chili's, they need to start giving a little bit more chicken for what you're paying for that. The Greek yogurt has a little bit, but not much. But the big thing is B and D just don't have enough carbs really to give you a high fuel source for the long game that you're about to endure.
There you have it. And I was surprised the first time I saw that as well. I thought the answer would have been the Caesar salad or the yogurt for sure, or the burger, of course. That's what my heart says. But yeah, no, it's really interesting. So yeah, I totally get, Austin, I like how you're kind of owning like, hey, you're not a certified nutrition expert, so to say, but you've also got a lot of knowledge on all things kind of fitness related and everything related. So also some really good knowledge you're dropping on that. We're going to keep it open here. Any other questions, either for our guest officials here in the panel, Mark and Brad, or questions for Austin related generally to conditioning topics or about the Runnin Ref program as well? Let us know. Jason just said, I remember Dennis Rodman saying all he ate was chicken and rice before games. Well, that kind of explains then. He was an endless fountain of energy on the court. So, it makes sense.
Y'all are also more than welcome to type anything in the chat about a future session as well. So we're always looking for more things to teach everybody in the future. So if there's something that you want to learn about in the future, and again, you thought this was very valuable to you and other officials, we want, to keep growing this and keep inviting more and more officials. So please let us know, because we want to talk about and teach what you guys want to learn.
Yeah.
That's what this is about. What you want to learn, what's going to make you a better official.
Yeah, I got a question here while we're continuing to keep things open. So when it comes to HIIT, comes to doing a HIIT workout, is there a certain, do you focus on certain areas of the body in one session? Do you kind of generally focus on the whole body? How do you, I'm asking that because my understanding is, when you're doing more aggressive weight training, you might focus on certain muscle groupings in a given session. With HIIT, is it similar in that regard, or is it more like you're actually just engaging the whole body every time you do it?
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, obviously, if you're running, there's less going on. Your arms are moving, your entire body's going, right? There's less going on with your arms, though, as opposed to if I was doing a ski-erg or a rower. My arms are a little bit more active, and there's a little more resistance to those. But typically, it's total body engaged at all times through HIIT training, and that's one of the powers in it. The whole body's getting a little bit of work to it.
Yeah, it makes sense when you explain it like that. Absolutely, it's really cool. And if you're new to this, what coaching would you give to someone in terms of injury prevention? Because I think doing something new
or high intensity training right off the bat, right?
Yeah.
Okay, here's a great. I would once again kind of when we talked about the theme of this, Aaron. I hope you stay on. I want to finish this one, but I definitely saw your question. The theme of this was creating a plan and ramping yourself up, right? That was kind of teaching you how to get in shape, essentially. Same thing here. If I haven't ran in 6 weeks since my season ended, and I go out and sprint as fast as I possibly can on a treadmill, I'm probably going to pull a hamstring, okay? That's where gradually ramping up your speed of movement and your speed of intensity is important, because you don't want the first time you do that to be game one, and now you're starting to miss assignments. So I think that the important thing is when you talk about starting is keep the volume low, start something that you can handle without puking, without vomiting, without injuring yourself, and then build off of that, right? So if I can only run at about 65 or 70% of what I perceive to be my fastest speed right away, the next session I would like to go a little bit faster. Or if I only did 10 total reps in session 1 of my off season, the next session I want that to go a little bit higher, right? And as you go about your off-season training, you're going to start to accumulate more and more volume and higher speeds. Or if we're doing kettlebell swings or med ball slams, higher and higher intensity and faster effort. So start slow, gradually ramp yourself up in terms of volume and speed of movement, and you definitely prepare yourself and stay away from some of those injuries.
Awesome. Thank you for breaking that down for us. As you mentioned, Aaron had a really good question. Do you have recommendations for fitting in workouts with travel and assignments?
Yes, Aaron, great question. I love that one. That's something that every official struggles with, right? If you're a college football official only, you only have games on Saturdays. If you're a high school and college basketball official and you have 4 or 5 games a week or whatever it may look like, there's times you're going to be on the road. So hotel gyms are going to have to be your best friend at some point. You got to do what you got to do. If they don't have the heaviest dumbbells that you need for your workout, again, you've got to make modifications. You've got to do what you have to. If they don't have a treadmill, maybe you've got to get yourself outside and do some of those things. So with travel, making the most of your hotel, you can utilize the pool in your hotel to do some activity. You can go outside for a walk if you need to for some activity. And always, body weight exercises are always a great option too, right? Because when you're traveling, you're probably not trying, unless you're gone for an extended period of time, you're more than likely not trying to get stronger while you're there, right? You're trying to stay in shape, or you're trying to stay along with the plan and the program that you have started following, right? So a little bit goes a long way. So if I have no hotel gym opportunities, which some hotels are like that, I can do push-ups in my room. I can do planks. I can bring my bands, as Bobby mentioned, in season. I have my bands with me, and I can fit those things in your garage at home too. So I think with travel and assignments, that fits in the travel part. But with many assignments during the course of the week, if you can sneak something in the morning, isn't always best case scenario for everybody. But if you could do something at home or quickly get to your gym on the way to work in the morning, Brad talked about it earlier. The biggest part of that is loosening yourself back up once again. So continuing on hotel gyms, at home, anywhere, anytime, any place that you can get in a little bit as opposed to a full session is going to pay huge dividends when you talk about end of the season and just staying healthy throughout the entire season.
Great stuff there, and great question, Aaron. Bobby had asked this, and I think it was touched on very early briefly, but maybe just touch on it again briefly about whether the Runnin Ref program is sport specific or if it's one size fits all.
It is sport specific. So we definitely do different things within each of the programs. The weight training, strength training is a little bit more general, but for each sport, we will follow the injury trends and throw in a little bit more of the exercises to hopefully safeguard against those. When it comes to the conditioning side, that's where it differs the most. Our football officials don't do quite as much running as some of our other sports, but now our football officials, starting this week, they started doing some back pedals within their training as well, right? Because at some point, they may need to do that. So we got to start prepping those muscles to do that. Our basketball officials do a ton of sprinting, right? We do a lot of repeat sprints with those guys because you watch the game and that's what happens within the game. So the conditioning side of it is more specific. The strength training is closer, but there are slight variances to, try to safeguard you against some of the main injuries in those sports.
Yeah, and with umpires, I mentioned before, you work with Brennan Miller, who's a Major League Baseball umpire, and one of the co-leads of our baseball division, along with Malachi Moore, who's here on the call. So on the baseball side, what do you work on with folks like Brennan?
Brennan trains hard. He really trains hard. I take a peek at the journals every single day, and he's always making his entries in there, right? Some people train and just don't make entries, and that's okay, but I can help you the more that you make. The baseball is a lot more general, so it's not quite as much running, but physical fitness and condition is very important for it. That's a long season for a Major League Baseball umpire. And some of the things that we talk about is the stances that they get into. So really honing in on their groins and low back health has been a big deal for baseball umpires so far.
Good stuff. And want to keep the chat open. Any final questions for Austin or our panel of officials here? And while we wait for any final questions, just to initiate some of you that might be less familiar with Refmasters, right? This is a community of officials, multiple sports, multiple levels, from just starting off as an official to we've got NBA, NFL, MLB, sports officials in the app as well. But Austin, we see you at our Refmasters camp. We do a basketball camp. We'll be doing other camps in baseball and football in the future as well. But for those of you that are basketball officials, we've got a basketball camp July 17th to the 20th. And Austin, you will be at our camp again this year, just like you were last time, right? So what are some of the things that you'll do with our officials when you work with them at camp?
So last year we got the chance to do a lot of individualized stuff at camp, and it was our first time. It was the first Refmasters camp. This year, I think that we're going to be able to, continue that theme of working one-on-one with officials. But we got to do some talks on recovery. We did some different talks on pre-game prep and some soft tissue self-massage therapy, which if any of you follow us online, we do a lot of those things frequently with all of our officials we work with in person, and I think it's a key to injury prevention. We went through a lot of those different things with them. We talked about pre-game warm-ups was a big thing, so we're hoping to build off that this year and do a little bit more hands-on type of stuff for the officials, because that's really, really powerful stuff when you can feel the things that we need you to feel and really get yourself amped up, and then it can help you for the game that you're about to go officiate.
Absolutely. 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 And I just dropped a link there in the chat for those of you that are interested to learn more about Refmasters Camp. In addition to Austin, we're actually bringing in we're going to do some mental health, mental performance coaching at the camp. And then our list of clinicians we're working on again. But last year, it'll be very similar to last year. We had NBA referees. We had college assigners like Eric Lewis, who's an assigner for the MEAC conference. Lots of NBA referees like James Williams and Kane Fitzgerald, but also Danielle Scott, Brandon Adair, lots of pros, and then folks from the WNBA and D1 as well, Angelica Suffren, Orlando Poole. So it's really like the who's who of camp clinicians, and that's why we're so glad to have Austin be part of that group. So yes, if you're a basketball official, do check that out. And then my last little shameless plug, perhaps, is just for Refmasters University. Those of you that are interested to dive deeper into the craft of officiating while you're also diving deep into fitness with Austin and with Runnin Ref, check out the Refmasters University program. We've got multiple sessions every month led by our pro, NBA, NFL, and Major League Baseball officials. They do film sessions directly working with you. We have recordings available. We do session quizzes. And then at the end of each semester, you get a certificate that is actually on your profile. So that's a way to signal to other officials and to assigners and decision makers about your commitment to great officiating and your own development. So if you're interested, we have a free 30-day trial. I just put the link there in the chat as well. Free 30-day trial. No reason not to try it. So we do look forward to seeing some of you there. Austin, any final words? Actually, let's go final words first. I want to hear from Brad and Mark. Takeaways from today's sessions, words of advice for anyone that's on their fitness journey or thinking about starting their fitness journey. Let's start with you, Mark, then we'll go Brad, and then we'll get final words from you, Austin.
Yeah, if you're wondering about doing this app and if you're on the fence whether it's worth it, I can tell you it is. I've benefited from it and I continue to every day, and consistency is the key.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Consistency is the key. That's a quote from me I'm taking away. Brad.
I'm with Mark on that. If you want a good program, gets you in great shape, and it helps you out, like you were talking about the mental side. I mean, in the hot games where I'm down here in Southeast Texas, where it's hot and humid football season, at the end of the games, I feel still mentally focused. And I do the basketball program, but it helps me out in the football side. So it's a great program. Definitely try it for a month or two, and I promise you, you'll keep wanting to renew it and work hard. It's definitely a great program, and Austin's done a great job.
He sure has. We love working with Austin because something he said before, right? He's about the same things we're about at Refmasters, which is just doing everything we can to give officials the things they need to be their best. That's ultimately what it's about. So already seeing a lot of notifications on my phone, folks that have joined the Runnin Ref space. A few folks just signed up for Refmasters University. We look forward to seeing you there. Austin, as we come to a close here, final words for our group here tonight, main takeaways.
Yeah, main takeaways is first is to invest in yourself. You know, no matter what you do, invest in yourself. If you're here, that means you're serious about being a better official. That means that you want to be a better version of yourself and you care about what you're doing. You came to learn. So, thank you for investing in yourself, because without you guys, we don't play these games. You know, without officials, we don't play the game. So, thank you for investing in yourself. I hope that you were able to take away so much to make yourself a better official, you know, in terms of conditioning, thought process, in-season training versus off-season training, better options versus options that may not be as suitable or as, you know, beneficial for you. So I hope that you were able to take away a ton. If you have any questions at all, please reach out. An open book. I don't have anything to hide. I'll share anything that I have with you. If I don't know the answer, we'll figure it out. And so thank you guys for that. And Sony, Refmaster's crew, you know, thank you guys so much for allowing us to host this. And to my two amigos here, I can't thank you guys enough for being willing to take, you know, an hour plus out of your busy lives and, you know, days. And I'm sure you'd be rather, you know, hanging out and relaxing or maybe watching film. I don't know. But I can't thank you guys enough for being a part of this and coming on here with me. It truly means a lot to me.
All right, y'all are welcome.
Yeah, you guys are awesome. I'm really glad to have you here tonight. And just one last thing, you know, when was the last time you were in a virtual space with 160, 170 officials that were all interested in their fitness? It's pretty cool, right? And that's why we're here. We're all here to lift each other up, to keep working on this together. And, you know, Austin, you've just been such a, I don't know if pioneer is the right word, but like, just really ringing the bell here on the importance of fitness to make us all better at what we do. So that's why we're just such big believers in your program, and we always want to do everything we can to support. I want to get you, Austin, to give us our final send-off. You know our slogan at Refmasters, but before I say that, to those of you that are in the Refmasters platform for the first time, check out our sports discussion. If you're an umpire or a referee, we've got daily discussion, baseball, football, basketball, led by professional referees. We've got folks from over 50 countries around the world just talking the craft of officiating. So we look forward to seeing you there. We look forward to seeing you at the next Runnin Ref session, because those are always awesome. But with that, I will hand it to our host for tonight, Austin. You know the send-off for us.
Run the game.
We help sports officials worldwide become more physically prepared for game day. Head on over to runninref.com and check out our training programs today. Let's get to running.